This question says, which chain is necessary for supporting the load placed on the right? Is it chain A, chain B, or chain C? So here on the right, we have the load, this orange box, which is exerting a downward force. And a consequence of this downward force will be the creation of a clockwise moment here on the support beam around what we can call pivot point O. So that means the chain that's necessary for supporting the load is going to restrict clockwise rotation. So let's take a closer look at each of these chains and see how they are contributing to the restriction of movement. Starting with chain A, we can see that chain A is going to restrict counterclockwise movement, which is not helpful for supporting the load on the right. We need to oppose clockwise movement, so chain A is not necessary for supporting the load. Then we have chain C. Chain C, like chain A, will be restricting counterclockwise movement. But again, we need the chain to restrict clockwise movement. So that leaves us with B. B will indeed restrict clockwise movement, which will indeed be necessary for supporting the load. Now, perhaps an easier way to imagine this is by simply removing each of these chains from the system and considering how this will affect. So again, here we have pivot point O, and we're worried, essentially, about a clockwise rotation, or in other words, this system falling forward. So we say that chain B will help restrict movement in the clockwise direction. I can draw that back into the illustration here. Now, what if we remove it? Well, if we remove chain B, and we're only left with chains A and C, if the system begins to rotate clockwise, or again, in other words, fall forward, well then chains A and C will simply fold. This chain will do nothing. It will simply collapse inwards, again, in other words, fold, and likewise chain A will do the same. Chain A will fold into a smaller length as the system falls forward clockwise. So it's chain B that's necessary for supporting the load, as it is the only chain that's going to restrict clockwise rotation. And therefore, the correct answer is B.